What's up? Some of the wait lists for the different ways we work with people around the world to optimize their health are now open. We're looking for people specifically going through autoimmune issues, brain fog, fatigue, hormone problems, fertility issues, things like anxiety and depression. So specific cases, there's a wide range of them, but to see if you're a candidate, go to drwillcole.com. Go to the Become a Patient page. It's the consultation page. And you can learn about the specific things we're looking for to take on at this point. We take a limited number of one-on-one concierge patients, and that wait list is now open. Welcome to The Art of Being Well. If you want to learn more about functional medicine as a whole, there's also tons of free resources there. Check it all out at, I said it, drwillcole.com. That's drwillcole.com. About every month, we have entire episodes devoted to your health questions. Send them in to hello@drwillcole.com. It can be a wide anything as it regards to functional medicine, wellness, health, nutrition, labs, health, wellness trends you see on social media. It could really be a wide gamut of questions. And we'll get to as many of them in these episodes. So go back and listen to past episodes if you like this format and you want to learn about an eclectic topics within health and wellness and nutrition. And to help me out, every Ask Me Anything episode, we have two brilliant members on the telehealth team on our they're both functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners. If the telehealth consults are done either by me or by these lovely two people, and there's two other girls that aren't on the show, but you're going to see one of us anyways. It's a small, lean, mean team. What's up, girls?
Hi, how's everybody?
I'm good.
Hello. We are here.
So let's jump into it and throw the questions at me. What are the ones?
All right, I'll go first. I've got a good question here, and Andrea, I think that you can have some really good input to give on this as well. The first question says, I'm curious to hear Dr. Cole's take on breast implant illness. I've had my implants for 10 years and have autoimmune issues that no one else in my family has, but it's hard to tell if they stem from my implants or other environmental lifestyle factors. Are there any tests I could get done to pinpoint if they are a trigger or not?
So breast implant illness, or BII, it's something that's talked a lot about on social media, within different forums online, and has for years since, really the internet has been around. I think these conversations have. It's just gaining more, I think, awareness in what the possibilities are. So it is an inflammatory response that can happen where the foreign object, in this case, the breast implant, is triggering some sort of inflammatory issue. So it could be a wide range of autoimmune symptoms, brain fog, fatigue, food sensitivities, digestive problems, neuroinflammation. So these are some things that we see as for some people. And I'm not against people having breast implants if they choose to do so. And this certainly isn't everybody that has breast implants. We're talking about a subset of people within the population that decides to get breast implants that have an inflammatory response to the breast implant. We've talked about it on the podcast several times before. I've had Dr. Tony Yoon, who's one of the leading plastic surgeons in the country, talked about it with him. I've talked about it with Julius Few, another world-renowned plastic surgeon, and I talked about it with Dr. Rob Whitfield, another brilliant plastic surgeon. So I've had three experts in the plastic surgery world talk about it from their perspective. So go back and listen to those episodes. We can put it in the show notes for you all for further education on the topic. And each conversation is different. From our perspective, we do see it as being a piece of the puzzle for some people, but it's a confluence of factors. It's not just the breast implant. That may be the straw that broke their camel's back and may have been that tipping point. So health history, context matter. And we've seen people get explants or removal of the breast implant and it be a significant needle mover for them. And then we've had some people that decide to get explants and it's not a significant needle mover for them. I haven't seen anybody regret having the explant done once they've decided that was the right decision for them and the choice that they made, because it's the variable, the what if is out. and they knew it really wasn't serving their health. And it's something that they have peace of mind, I guess would be a good way of saying it, that this was another component that they just wanted to eliminate that variable. And some people decide to keep the implants in, and we have to work on a lot of other things. And for some people, again, to repeat myself, it's not an issue for them. So I don't want to be hyperbolic and say, well, this is fear monger and say everybody has to get their implants out. But it certainly should be considered if you've tried lots of things within your health and wellness and you aren't getting better, or you can correlate your symptoms kind of slowly or kind of rather quickly upticking, at least trending in the worst direction after you've got the implant. To answer your question on labs, we would look at a lot of immunological inflammatory labs. We'd see what's going on from an inflammatory immune standpoint, and we could look at toxin panels as well. And I think a combination of environmental toxins and inflammation could be two sets of labs, and there'll be dozens of biomarkers within those two categories that could bring added objective data context to it. But at the end of the day, you don't know how much of it is going to be driven by the implant until you get the explant. So we can have an educated guess. We can have informed decision-making based on your health history. And that's something that conversations that we could have with you. But ultimately, you don't know how much of a needle mover it's going to be until the explant. So these are conversations that we have with telehealth patients. But I want to kick it over to Andrea, because besides her having a lot of clinical experience over the past 15 years around these inflammatory topics, you've also gone through that on your personal side of things, which you've never shared before publicly in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
No, I haven't, but I'm okay to talk about it.
So let's go there. What was your journey like with this?
Yeah, so I talk to patients about this if I see this on their applications and on those consultations, that intake that we do. And again, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dr. Cole. This is not to shame anybody. This is not to help to put it into perspective that this is the only thing that we're going to talk about and that this is the only factor that needs to be considered, because it could be, like you said, the drop that overflowed the bucket. And, well, what was there to begin with? Because you can remove the explants, but if there's still other underlying issues that were already filling up the bucket, you have to consider that. So for myself, I personally have autoimmune issues, familial and personally. And then I was in my 20s and I made a personal decision and to get implants, and I think it is a personal decision, and it's a personal decision to get them out as well. And so you have to really consider the implications of why you chose it, and are you ready for the journey of removing? And it's because it's not as simple as people think. An actual full explant should include an en bloc, which is where they will go in and remove the tissue as well that encapsulated the implant to begin with. And it's a recovery process in and of itself. And surgery can, for some people, be a flare as well. I've seen it vastly with our patients where some people will have significant improvement, like you said, to not seeing any improvement at all. For myself personally, I wouldn't say that I necessarily felt all that difference, but my labs did change. That was they've looked at my labs, so they know, especially in particular my thyroid antibody response. My thyroid antibody response within 6 months of having them taken out significantly dropped. I also chose to have the tissue tested that was that encapsulated the implant. My doctor, he was not necessarily a BII expert, but was willing to hear me and do the procedure that I wanted. And he told me, he's like, oh, I make no promises on what's going to come back on this tissue. It's that implants are fine. Like but I'll do it for you. And I remember I sat down with him in his office with my follow-up, and he goes, so your lab results came back. He's like, they're not cancerous, but there's inflammatory cells all throughout the tissue. He goes, and so for me, it felt like confirmation of something that I already knew. And I had made the decision to have them removed because I wanted one less factor that influenced my health. I wanted one less factor that I had to consider. I wanted one less foreign object in my body. Like I wanted to care for myself in a purposeful and meaningful way. And for me, it looked like an explant. That doesn't look like that for everybody, but in truth, my labs did change and there was inflammation found around the tissue. Would that be the case for everybody? Potentially not, but with those that have a familial history or personal history of autoimmunity, it is definitely something to be considered.
And for some people, it's a significant needle mover for them, right? They know more than their labs.
100%.
Like brain fog goes away. Their food sensitivities go away.
I should point out my skin. So I forgot all about that because it's been a few years since I've had the explant. I had a couple miscarriages that you guys know about. And when it had happened, I had gotten a horrible rosacea flare, like whether it was the stress, emotional, or the actual autoimmune response. I had really, really bad rosacea, like actual lesions and welts, and it was just not good. I literally took a picture before my surgery, 30 minutes after the surgery, and 2 days later, and there is a significant reduction in my skin tone and inflammation. So it's not as immediate as like some people where they feel really awful and then have them removed and feel a lot better. Mine was more of a visual response, but it definitely, again, more of an inflammatory response. And we just had a consultation. I just talked with someone who ran labs with our office, and she had an explant a couple years ago. And we didn't really find all that many chemical toxins, but her inflammation is significantly different than it was at that point as well.
Yeah. And I think this just gives good understanding and context around when we do consultations. We have a lot of paperwork that we go through with these people and a lot of background that we cover. And this is why, right? You know, it's not going to be necessarily the only factor, but for someone, it could be a major factor involved. And that's why we need to get an understanding of a full health history. And every time we're talking, I know all of us do this, we say, hey, we're just asking these questions because we want to understand what factors could be involved here, because we know it's going to be more than just one. There's going to be multiple things involved. And so I think that really just paints the picture as to why we would ask those questions and, have such a large application that we go through as people for that reason and for good reason. And my question that I think I would have here is, can you just go back to your surgeon, or you should are some surgeons not even open to discussing these things? Because I know I think you mentioned you went to a completely different surgeon, right?
And I think we talked about these on the previous podcast as
well.
There's
my recommendation would be to go to somebody that knows about BII, acknowledges it, and there may not be in your city. Andrea did it for convenience standpoint, and the doctor was willing to do it.
There were a lot of really great doctors that were able to do this that were within driving distance of me. However, their wait time was a little bit longer. And when I made the decision, I just wanted it done quickly. And I found a doctor that was willing to do the surgery how I wanted it to. But there are certain doctors that I don't know if I would say that won't do it, but maybe don't fully understand or appreciate what you're asking them to do.
Right. Because I had a friend who, she's also dealing with some heavy autoimmune illnesses, and she actually went back to her surgeon, and he said, this is not something I do. It's, and I don't even really do explants. He said, but I do think it's a possibility that you have this. And so I think it's great that he at least encouraged her, maybe to explore this further, even though he doesn't focus on it. I just thought it was interesting that some are either, whether they're unwilling or just unfamiliar with it. I thought it was interesting that he was like, hey, you're going to have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's something to talk about and to know.
For sure.
And I do want to point out, just to kind of wrap up this question, because it sounds like this listener has not fully committed to the idea of an explant. She wants to understand if she can determine if this is something that is influencing it. And I think your answer was really good. And I want to point it back to that. You won't actually know unless you get it done. We can do a lot of really great tests. We can have a really good understanding.
I think the labs would give the confirmation that you're a better candidate for it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what
it would narrow down to the increased likelihood that you would see it being a needle mover for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much stuff we can do in the intermediate too, and that we can help remove toxins from the body. All right, next question, Dr. Cole. I like this one because I think we all have a personal opinion about it, but I've heard so many contradictory things on stevia. Does it negatively impact your gut if you have digestive issues, or is it all right in moderation?
The short answer is it's all right in moderation for most people. You want to look at the quality of the stevia. It's oftentimes cut with mixed with other types of sugar alcohols like xylitol or erythritol. So it may not be the stevia, it may be the sugar alcohols, which I'm less of a fan of. And they're bleach. If you think about the white powder side of things that most people are getting when it comes to stevia, it's not the green, it's actually a plant. And if you get pure like green stevia, it's just dried up green powder. Or we get pure stevia extracts that come in tinctures. We actually use them therapeutically with telehealth patients. They act as a mild biofilm disruptor, which biofilm is mucosal barrier lining in the body that a lot of bacteria, yeast, fungus, viruses, and mold toxins can hide. So we want to support a healthy biofilm. Stevia can be one potential tool, not the only tool within that toolbox to support a healthy biofilm. So you could assume consistent use of a biofilm disruptor in drinks, in snacks, in foods on a daily basis, all day, every day, and also not in the best quality, also with other variables like sugar alcohols that are mixed with these in products. It's not necessarily the best idea for a lot of people. You can have too much of an okay thing. And I think that's the bigger point here. That would be my take. It can cause digestive issues, upset. It can irritate the microbiome because it is modulating the microbiome. What's your take?
I feel like, again, most people are probably not using the medical grade stevia, right? That we use for patients. Because if you are using medical grade stevia, I mean, there's so many good studies on it, and it's anti-inflammatory activity, it's antimicrobial activity. And so I do think that if you're finding a good therapeutic and medical grade one, that you can use it to sweeten things, because it's still going to be sweet because it's the whole plant. But most of us are seeing it in, other health or natural food products, right? And it's probably not a medical grade version, which is why if your gut is already under a lot of stress, it could potentially just continue to irritate it. So I think it's, depending on what you're using and how you're using it. But I do agree, in some moderation, it's okay, right? It's balance. I feel like if you're having that type of stevia over going to McDonald's, you're fine. You're good. But at the end of the day, we really tell people, if we're taking a clinical approach, we want to understand what is going to serve them best. And sometimes those foods that are going to have those type of ingredients could be more disruptive for them for a time period while we're trying to heal the body.
Okay, you guys said everything I was going to say. Do we know what type of stevia that the company Zevia uses? Because I would like to know. Do you think it's good quality, or do you think it's bad?
I can't stop, and I won't stop.
I don't know how to stop.
Well, there's lots of, the clinic has a Zevia problem. It's for people that don't know, it's a stevia sweetened soda.
It runs through my veins, okay?
So people love it here. And I've been open and honest about my recovery on the podcast.
You're the first one.
If there was a rehab for Zevia consumers, I would have been in Malibu.
But I think it's important to recognize that moderation is good. And I think that that's really what this listener is asking is this okay in moderation? And I think the answer is, for most people.
Yeah.
But something that I know Andrea and I have both done too is because we, especially during my pregnancy, needed to get more electrolytes, which I'm not a huge fan of electrolytes. I know I need them, but just like the different options out there,
You're a baby about it.
I am a baby about it, but I know I've needed it. And so I have spent my pregnancy, which, was a while ago at this point, but trying to find better alternatives. And the one thing that Andrea and I started exploring was adding the medical grade stevia that we have, and fresh lemon or things to our waters, and kind of creating our own electrolyte mix.
Yep.
Because using unflavored electrolytes was what we were aiming to do. And I know that obviously it's going to be more convenient to use a natural option. There are great options out there that we love. But anyways, just something that we had worked on too, of just kind of exploring adding stevia to our drinks and creating my own lemonade in a way, right? The medical grade stevia with the lemon.
You did a really good job with that. And I would say I even use it a higher quality stevia in even making my homemade salad dressings instead of honey, because sometimes for me too much honey is too much. And so I think that this is a good question. And if you're concerned about it, this is a great opportunity for you to do a consultation, get some labs run, learn more about yourself,
Get
find a good quality.
get a health test.
Yeah, get a GI mapping.
We can look at the immune system. Yeah, my favorite sweeteners personally would be Manuka honey. I love allulose. I like monk fruit. So if looking for
Maple
like
syrup.
a non low carb sweetener, I like Manuka honey, and for a low carb sweetener, I like monk fruit and allulose. Yeah, pure maple syrup can be fine in small amounts too. I like the sort of medicinal aspect of Manuka honey.
And we've seen that, I mean, not just in clinical research, but also within the clinic itself with patients that have good benefits from bringing in the Manuka honey. It's a good point. All right, Emily.
All right. Would it be best to get organic milk or A2 milk? This is a good question. I like this. I cannot get organic A2 milk. So we got to split it up here, Dr. Cole. They need the either or. So what if you had to choose between organic milk or A2 milk, which would you choose?
Oh, hopefully we have like a really dramatic debate about this.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. So I would personally, if I'm weighing all options, if you're saying, okay, someone doesn't have access to organic A2 milk. For people that don't know, A2 is the subtype of casein or dairy protein. So dairy is, and especially in its whole raw form, is a whole food with lots of different compounds in it. The dairy protein casein, most cows today have beta A1 casein, which humans for eons would have consumed beta A2 casein, but because of the crossbreeding of cows and modern farming and time, most cows, it's shifted that protein to be predominantly beta A1 casein, and researchers are looking at, well, that as being at least a component as to why people have dairy sensitivities, dairy allergies, and triggering other food sensitivities. So A2 is the more like OG, ancient primordial casein or dairy protein, and decreasing that evolutionary mismatch between genetics and epigenetics and our microbiome. So going back to my point, you'll see A2 cropping up in health food stores, and A2 yogurt, A2 cheeses, A2 milks. That's what they're talking about here. They're cows that produce milk that has A2 casein, which the human immune system and the microbiome seems to like it better. So my perspective would be probably A2. So if you're looking at somebody that has dairy sensitivities, you're going to have a better luck from a dairy sensitivity issue to go for A2. And remember, the labeling of organic, especially if you're shopping local, if you're going to a farmer's market or a local farmer, getting to know your farmer in this instance is really important, because a local farmer may not pay for the certification to have it organic, but their actual practices are quote unquote organic. Like they're just not, it's costly for local farmers who already aren't making a lot of money to pay for that certification. So getting to know your farmer in this instance is good. Now, if it's a brand and it's not your farmer and you're picking, then I would get to know the brand and see what are their practices. And yes, that does take some consumer digging, but I do think it's worth it, especially if you're going to consume it on a consistent basis. And if it's grass-fed and A2, but not organic, personally, I would go for that. But I don't want to underestimate the organic component of it. When you look at things like glyphosate, so part of me from a clinical perspective, I would want to look at the person's health case. If I run a lab on the patient and they have high glyphosate levels and they don't have any dairy sensitivities, my recommendation would be go for the organic over the A2. But if they don't have high glyphosate levels, but they have lots of dairy sensitivities, but really want to bring dairy into their life, I would go for A2. And then grass-fed is the other variable here that wasn't mentioned within the question, but that does change some of the nutrient density and fatty acid profile as well. So it's a spectrum. It's not like clear cut. I'd want to know the context of the person asking this question, but personally, I'm thinking of myself. I'd probably go for the A2 grass-fed over the organic, especially if it's a local farmer that's doing practices that are organic-like in nature. But let the debate commence.
I don't know if it's going to be much of a debate because I actually agree. I would pick A2, but I have dairy sensitivities and my kids have dairy sensitivities and my husband has dairy sensitivities. So I tend to lean more towards the A2 milk. However, you guys make fun of me. I am all about my organic. I get that. Because quality is important to me and I want to.
Wait, why do we make fun of you?
Because I like organic products. Will does.
But what? Why would we make fun of you
I
about
feel like
that?
we wouldn't make fun of you for that. We make fun of you for a lot of things, but I don't think being organic is one.
No, definitely is.
But it can get to the point. I'll just to say this: it can get to the point where it's almost like during the keto craze. It was like,
yes.
just because it's keto, it's healthy.
have it.
Just because
Gotcha.
if you're getting organic candy, but you're like, it's organic. I think that's where we tease you because you're like, oh, look, this
Now
candy
we
is
have-
organic. Oh,
now we
wow,
have
that deletes the entire
you
sugar
don't
profile.
Need to, call out my giggles issue right now.
We are.
Yeah, so that's what it is. Halloween
Dr.
rolls
Phil,
around.
are you available today? Because we're on a full exposure.
No, it's fine. No, but in all honesty, to answer the question, for the same exact variables, we are not anti-food. We are not anti-real whole foods, but quality is important and health history is important. And I think you really summarize that well, is that if you are dairy sensitive, if this listener is dairy sensitive, I would probably lean towards the A2, and I would personally for that reason. Am I slightly convicted about it? Yeah, because you're right, because there's the glyphosate component and the non-organic aspect of it I don't love, but personally that's what I would choose. Now, organic milk too, is it organic, but is it grass-fed? Like what about it makes it organic? Is it just the feed of the cow? Because how healthy is it even if it's organic? But
yeah, I don't trust. Honestly, I feel that way. I don't really trust it if it just says organic.
Yeah,
like milk. Like what else is going on?
It's organic grains, is what they're saying, which is going to be lower in glyphosate, which has its value, right? If it's not grass-fed, just organic, it has value.
And especially if again, resource, right? If it's the best option that you have, I do think it's going to be better than the alternative. But yeah, I mean, I would go with the A2. I mean, I get that raw milk, so that's what take me to a farm.
Don't say that too loud. That someone's going to go shut down that farm now if you keep talking about it.
Oh yeah, I'm not telling you guys.
Well, let me say this, because the homogenization and the pasteurization of the milk changes the protein. So to Emily's point, like getting raw dairy, if you have access to it even if it's not A2.
Yeah, right.
Can be because of the enzymes and the beneficial immunoglobulins that are within it. It will make it more digestible. So let me just open this up a little bit more. This isn't within the question. Raw dairy that's grass-fed, maybe that's not even A2, may be the best option for many people, because the A2 may not even be needed when the immunoglobulins and the enzymes and the other nutrients, the vitamins, are naturally occurring in raw milk. So,
and then I'll throw that one in there.
And fermenting the kefirs and cheeses and yogurts are also further ferments a lot of these dairy caseins and sugars, the lactose, that makes it further digestible. So even a cultured fermented dairy drink would be even better.
And even hard cheeses too are going to have less digestive issues as well. So. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you expected a debate, but I think we all agreed with each other.
Hey, we didn't plan that. That's rare that happened. What's the next question?
All right. So next question. And I feel like this is geared towards teenage, but this really is a question that I think would fit both teenagers and adults. It says, I would love to hear your thoughts on teenage acne and what holistic things you would recommend to reduce cystic acne. They said teenage, but I mean, really, we know a lot of women hormonally with cystic acne and other acne. So I think that we should tell our viewers what you think about it.
So it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. It's not really going to be one size fits all. So labs, health history, context is helpful here to see if somebody has, estrogen dominance or high androgen dominance. They have insulin resistance that's driving things like PCOS or some sort of insulin resistant component that's showing up on the skin, or they have some food sensitivity or environmental toxins. So there's a lot of variables that aren't going to do this answer in question justice, but I will give you some evidence-based tools that if you haven't tried it, I definitely would lean into the things that I can kind of think at the top of my head. One is just avoiding high processed sugar diet. There's studies that show that following a low sugar or low glycemic index diet, follow for 12 weeks, improve acne in 2 clinical trials that I'm aware of. We talked about dairy, homogenized, pasteurized, nutrient less deficient dairy that's fed grains, and the cow's fed grains, and it's all of that stuff. It's sort of a shell of what it could be in its whole food form. Studies have shown that eating conventional everyday grocery store dairy is linked, associated with acne. The researchers are postulating the potential could be the added hormones or these bioactive molecules that are found in milk. Now, people can react to even the A2 organic stuff. So I don't want to just say it's just the conventional stuff. So some people should be having the fermented dairy or going to goat dairy or sheep dairy, which will make it more digestible and absorbable. The green tea can be helpful. The EGCG catechin that's within green tea has been shown to block secretion in the skin, inhibiting the microbes, the bacteria that can breed in the skin microbiome that causes acne. Omega-3 fatty acids, tons of good solid evidence in the scientific literature looking at fatty fish like sardines and salmon and mackerel and anchovies, really helpful for that phospholipid skin barrier that's so important. Zinc, supplementing with zinc and judicious supplementation of zinc can be beneficial. It acts as an antimicrobial that's good through the gut-skin axis. Some good food sources of zinc are things like red meat, grass-fed beef, organ meats, seafood, things like nuts and seeds if you tolerate them, soaking them and sprouting them if they cause some digestive issues. Other supplements that can be beneficial would be niacinamide, which is vitamin B3. There's multiple clinical studies that show mild to moderate acne. Niacinamide is it acts as antimicrobial. Again, there's niacin supplementation and there's niacinamide topically. So inside out and outside in an approach, niacin can be helpful. And other B vitamins to support methylation like folate and B12 all have their place. Supplementing with fish oil. Food is first, but if you're not getting food enough consistently of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, supplementing with omega-3 can be helpful. Green tea extract, as I mentioned, you can drink your green tea, but getting extract that's standardized for the EGCG, the catechin, can be beneficial. Probiotics, Saccharomyces boulardii, lactobacillus, several different lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are associated in the scientific literature with decreased acne breakouts. One study looked taking consistently with probiotics for 5 months improved the appearance of acne. Milk thistle, silymarin is the main compound within milk thistle, showed that reduced acne severity by mouth daily for 2 months, decreased acne, so oral supplementation of milk thistle. And it was shown to be really in combination with some glutathione precursors like N-acetylcysteine, selenium, sort of a combination of some selenium, NAC or N-acetylcysteine, which is a glutathione antioxidant precursor, and milk thistle, all have beneficial use. We have the Art of Being Well supplement line. We can put them in the show notes. But things like Protect can be beneficial here. Getting the methylator or the Be Better, getting a vitamin C supplement can be beneficial here. The vitamin D3K2, the omega, and the probiotic. If I had to think of like a few things on my top of my head, if you're looking for a DIY, like do it on yourself, check out the Art of Being Well supplement line. Clinically, I recommend running some labs, looking at the actual mechanism of action for your case. These things are good things to do on your own, but they're not a replacement for labs if you're still like stuck at a plateau.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And so that's not just for teenage, that's for adults as well.
Oh yeah, it's anybody.
Yeah.
And then what used to be a teenage issue is not anymore. No. It's going into people's 30s and 40s. I mean, because of really a lot of it has to do with the microbiome decimation, which is just regulating hormonal pathways in the body.
Yeah, we see that a lot with different pathogen and toxin overloads and putting that stress on the kidney and liver. So that's where that Protect can come into play. And
the Protect is the formula. It has N-acetylcysteine, has green tea, it has a lot of antioxidants in it, and those B vitamins to support methylation.
And you gave a whole long list, so I'm sorry if I missed it, but beef liver is
I mentioned red meat.
Red meat, yeah. Specifically liver, I think, is a really great option for that as well, because the vitamin A aspects of it, along with zinc and other B vitamins as well. So I think that, again, whole foods. If you have a teenager, I have two, you can control what's in your house, but there are vending machines at school and they go to their friends' houses. And if they are eating a really terrible, poor diet, you can do supplemental. It's going to help. Obviously, it's not going to be for naught, but you do have to consider and really think about the implications of the type of stress you're putting on your gut. Gut-skin axis is a real thing. Gut hormone axis, they're definitely hormonal. So from a teenage aspect, there's a lot of shifts and changes just naturally. And if you add burden to the body in the form of a poor diet, lack of sleep, too much screen time, just these overall stressors, that can manifest in the skin.
Yeah, and I think even looking at skincare, right? We know it starts inside first, but
me and you have lots of opinions about this.
Lots of opinions, but less is more, right? But also, if it is, you're asking for your teenager, what soaps, shampoos, and things are you getting for them to utilize too? Like, I love using the Environmental Working Group Skin Deep website to get cleaner products for my kids, for my household. So looking at that can be really helpful starting point too, but less is more, because there's a lot of skincare products out there, right? And not everything is going to work well. And you don't want to disrupt that skin barrier, which can cause more inflammation. And so that's something that I think that we need to really just be mindful of too, is because we don't want to disrupt that. We don't want to use too much, because I think that research is showing too that is actually creating more damage for young adults who are trying to start off using a ton of skincare products.
Oh, I was a victim of this in my youth. Does anybody remember Oxy pads? Do those things still exist?
No.
You burned off the top of your skin. I'm trying to teach my kids now. I mean, it's really important to consider all those aspects. But again, if you're getting poor sleep, you're eating terribly, you're stressed out, and you're not caring for yourself, you can do a million things for your skin. And you can buy all the best topical solutions that there are available, but it's only going to go so far. And I think especially for adults that can maybe be a little bit more rational, helping your child understand that and looking at labs, sometimes having hard evidence helps your kids understand why they need to make the choices that they need.
I've seen that clinically, and we've all seen it, is that it's sometimes it's not the message, it's the messenger. And sometimes having someone that's not the parent, like us, walk the teenager through, or the young adult through the labs, it's the person saying it, but also it's that aha moment of like, oh, I see it on a lab. It's not just because my mom and my dad are nagging me about whatever it is. It could be acne, it could be something else. Right. We look at the hormonal component, or the gut-skin axis component, or the inflammatory component, or the nutrient deficiency component, or a combination, typically is a combination of these variables. They can be good encouragement for anybody, not just a teenager. It's that come to Jesus moment for people, like, oh, wow, this isn't just some abstract conceptual idea. Actually, you can see the numbers and improve, which is why I think we've seen so many school teachers and engineers and entrepreneurs and nurses that are like, they love spreadsheets and looking at the data and seeing the data improve. So
no, I think those are great. One little side note, this has nothing to do with the question, but we were talking about skincare. I do think you should come out. I'm going to make a public plea for everybody to say this. I think you should come out with a bath line. I think that you need like a functional medicine bath line that's non-toxic.
We've talked about it before.
I know. I'm just saying. I want you to come out with it.
Yeah. Hey, maybe.
Submit your requests.
Not just your questions. Submit your requests.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Next question. Hello, Dr. Wilcol and team. I have heard on podcasts from other functional medicine doctors that I should minimize mixing fats with high carbs. I was wondering if you could elaborate on this a little bit more. Sure. Adding avocado to salads with veggies seems to be okay, but should I avoid adding avocados or nuts to a meal that also contains sweet potatoes or other high complex carbs? If it should be avoided, is it to maintain metabolic flexibility, or is there concern with glycation?
Well, this
There
person
you go.
really gave us some thought.
I love it.
They
So-
are ready.
Great question. Love the context and love you're already thinking about these things. So there's something in this scientific world and the nutrition science world called the mixed meal that I've written about and talked about over the years. And it's researchers looking at the sort of amplified effect of saturated fat, basically. It's more of the high saturated fatty acids and other, let's just say, industrial seed oil fats and trans fats and things that could be looked at. Think of the modern American diet. So greasy food paired with carbs and sugar, what they call the mixed meal. And that there's increased levels of high sensitivity C-reactive protein and inflammatory spike of the mixed meal over just having the fat by itself or the sugar by itself. So it's sort of this inflammation bomb, if you will. And think of like a burger, right? With industrial seed oils, a canola oil bun, refined bleached flour, and grain-fed cow. So that's, and paired with French fries and soda. So you have French fries with all the fats in there, as far as oils are concerned, the carb of the potato, and soda. That's like the quintessential mixed meal. And it's definitely associated with inflammation. So I don't want people to think that a fiber-rich, whole food, complex carbohydrates are going to be metabolized and have the same glycemic influence as a fiber-less, nutrient-less food. So the context that this person's giving within the question, I really don't feel should be concerned about. Like, you do not have to be fearing. Sorry, just dinged my mug here. You don't have to be concerned. Yeah, ding. And moving on. No, your time is not up with this question. So you want to. Now, look, my clinical mind would be like, let's get a CGM on them.
Yeah.
And let's measure on a continuous glucose monitor and see for your own bioindividuality, your own biochemistry, how much of a glucose spike is going to happen. Now, the caveat with this is, do glucose spikes, when you're talking about whole foods, really matter if the blood sugar comes back down? I don't think it's that big of a deal. So if you wanted to get super wonky and like biohacker, and we can look at the data to make maybe more optimal decisions, we can do that. But in the scheme of life, I really don't feel like for the average person, they need to be concerned about this. When you're talking about fiber-rich carbohydrates, which blunts the glucose spike, it slows down the absorption of blood sugar into the bloodstream, dampening any glucose spike. On top of the fact, you can do sort of macro stacking and adding in like a fiber-rich vegetable and protein first, which enhances satiety, makes you feel fuller longer, and helps blood sugar regulation and slows down glucose absorption or sugar absorption. So you could just do that. If you want to sort of order the meal in a certain way, I don't feel like you need to be concerned with separating the healthy whole food fats from these healthy whole food carbohydrates, even if it does cause a little glucose spike. Don't yawn, Emily. Am I boring you?
Her glucose is imbalanced.
I was also. Wow, we just exposed every single person.
She's a little
in the room
hypoglycemic today. I'm talking about such an interesting topic, and girls yawning across the table.
Listen, I have
he's so freaking long-winded is what she's thinking.
What I was going to say, actually, my whole thought this whole time was I didn't realize I could ever feel nauseous from how someone described a burger, the way that you described the canola oil
bun.
I know.
But hey, it's organic, so it should be fine.
You're right. We definitely make fun of you for that.
I told you. You guys make fun of me.
Well, it wasn't about the organic part. It was like everything else.
Stop. I don't. You have like a.
Well, I'm
literally. Go ahead.
I agree with everything you said.
Do you remember it? So I will say, in all honesty, this woman sounds, or I'm assuming it's a woman. I shouldn't have assumed that. Most of our patients are women, I think is why I went there. But this could be very well a man. I think what they're concerned about is just, it sounds like a lot of control. And it sounds like a lot of stress around whole foods. And so you're talking about having a veggie salad with avocado or nuts and at a meal. that sounds great. It sounds healthy. It sounds like you're making good choices.
Yeah.
And I think that there is something to be said. This is why we recommend CGMs. This is why we recommend, doing a chronometer where we're looking at your macros and your micros and making sure you're getting a balance for some cases. If you're having issues, that would be the next question. Why are you asking this?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening that you feel like you need to know this? Because we shouldn't be demonizing food. We should be looking at real whole foods as our friend, and it can be utilized and optimized. But why are you asking this?
Right.
So
Is it, that's a good point. Is the question driven by symptoms and you're looking to improve your health?
Right.
That's a bit different. That's a
big
widely
different
different than somebody that's just really in the minutia of things. And that can kind of really, with the best of intentions, breed into sort of an orthorexic hyper focus on healthy foods. Yeah. And stressing about the food is worse than any sort of mixed meal. And especially when you're looking at the context that you're giving within the question.
And I read it different. That's how I read it. Right. I was like, well, what? And again, this is probably nearly 15 years of looking over applications and talking with patients. But I looked at this and I thought, why are you asking and how can we be there for you? Because all that information, the science behind it, the things that we just talked about are great, but you should have some grace.
Yeah. And eating mindfully around these things, like working on your parasympathetic, eating more mindfully, doing some breath work around your meals, having things that are congruent and conducive to that parasympathetic rest and digesting is going to lower any glucose spike and help with digestion and absorption and of all of this too. So the mindset and heart set in which you eat the meal influences the outcome of the meal.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about.
We have all, for the most part in this office, tried a CGM at one point in time because we want to be able to not talk about it practically with patients, just not about what we've read. And I mean, no offense to work, I love you guys, but I'd eat the same dang grapes here at work or the same watermelon at work and my blood sugar would spike. I eat that at home on a weekend after I go for a walk with my kids. Completely different blood sugar response.
Well, that's another good point too. So maybe not to pin it entirely on us and the stress that we cause you. The walking honestly. After the meal has been shown to significantly dampen even just a 10-15 minute walk too. And I invite you on walks at lunch and you turn me down.
I have a walking pad and I walk 2 to 3 hours a day. Thank you very much.
It's fine. We're just outside grounding too at the same time.
Yeah. And you guys follow me outside at lunch every day to sit on our grassy knoll outside of our office. Anyways, do we have time for one more question,
Dr.
Let's
go for it.
Okay. So this question has been kind of hanging out for a little bit. We haven't taken it and talked about it yet, but I think it's an interesting question. It's definitely specific. And I'm going to try and say this right. You made fun of me the last time I said it because I said it wrong. It said, my brother did 3 Kambo sessions in Costa Rica. I know what it is. I kept saying Kambo like Rambo, but Kambo sessions in Costa Rica. And he said he is healed from sugar cravings and trauma. What are your insights for this? It seems like a quick fix to the supplements, gut work, and drops to help kill all the toxins, bind them with charcoal. I'm not sure how I feel about putting poison in your body to get poison out as a quick fix. She put it in quotes, amazing effects last?
So Kambo is from a specific South American frog, the giant monkey frog, which just sounds amazing.
Giant monkey frog. Can we attach a picture somehow?
Yeah, we can. It's a poison extract from the frog, and it's frog medicine, and it's been used indigenously for thousands and thousands of years, for centuries, and more and more as I would say different. You can say plant medicines or psychedelics. There's a lot of conversations that are happening with these indigenous medicines. This is not a psychedelic, nor is it a plant, but it's very specific frog medicine that's similar, and it's an enhanced detox process. The process begins typically drinking about, traditionally I would say how it's done indigenously, is drinking water or a traditional cassava soup, which sounds amazing. And then the practitioner burns a hole, but not a hole, but
it's getting a little weird.
Yeah, or burns a hole, or it puts a kind of a circular is what I'm trying to say, a circular burn on the skin, and it blisters, which is the blistered skin is then scraped off. Sounds amazing, right? You all want to do this right now.
Is this on me or the frog?
This
is all on you.
Wow.
No one's touching the dang frog here.
Yeah,
no, that would be animal abuse. We're not doing anything.
No, only human abuse around here.
Only actual
come on. What do you think we are?
It's like cigarette burn. Think of that. Like someone just
yeah, cigarette burn. Exactly. And the Kambo is applied to the wound. So the Kambo enters the bloodstream through the lymphatic system, and it then has its effect on the body. You can feel, depending on the dose, you can get very sick and vomit. I've heard patients talk about really digestively releasing a lot of things in the body. And I've talked to different Kambo practitioners, and they talk about it being, one, it's done appropriately, very safe. It's non-psychoactive, so people are concerned about that, but it does have sort of a visceral effect. And it seems to be, as far as the mechanism of action in the science, and I would love to see more studies on this, it seems to be the peptides, these sort of protein building blocks that's within the venom, and it modulates our own body in a way. So similar to peptide therapy, but in a more extreme way, that seems to be the immunomodulating, the immune system modulating, and the enhanced detoxification aspects, allowing the body to release things it otherwise would not be releasing. So I do think it has its place, but obviously you need to do this appropriately, safely, monitored, all of that stuff. And I would love to see more research on it. And as with most of these things, it's not everybody's a candidate for this stuff, and you shouldn't do it. And I see all of this stuff as like down the line. Like if you're exploring these more out of the box, maybe controversial things, that's not like, start with the basic stuff, start with the foundational stuff, be consistent with the foundational stuff. But I do feel like there's such a world of indigenous medicines, whether it's Kambo or psychedelics or, anything like that, that can modulate the body in a positive way. I'm excited about the science of it.
Yeah.
I volunteer Andrea as tribute.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I have been the guinea pig for 15 years. Why would this be any different? There's a lot of clinical research that 15, 20 years ago wasn't as deeply researched that we see even now with other therapies that are maybe less popular, like psilocybin, being talked about. And I know it's not the same mechanism. I know it's different. But at the end of the day, the research around that is not negating doing the work. So this person is asking and saying, my brother did this and he says he's cured. But a lot of the research that we've read around these other alternative ways to help the body release trauma are suggested to be accompanied with therapy and whole body healing. Because yes, I'm not against this. I think it can be an amazing, let's understand,
it can be a tool within the toolbox.
Right. Exactly.
Certainly. But yeah, I rarely do people, it's like a magic cure, but can it be a significant needle mover? Like anything like this? Yeah. It can be. And a little caveat here is Kambo is legal. It's not monitored by the FDA, but it is legal. Unlike most psychedelics at this point.
Yeah.
Like regular, like you can't, the accessibility is not really there. But, they're not outlying frog venom at this point.
I think that'd be kind of hard to do. I don't know. How do you regulate frog venom?
They'll find a way.
Yeah.
They'll find a way.
But I'm just saying, like, I know it's different. I know that, these are the types of things that you talk to patients about, and they're like, have you lost your actual mind? We're like, no, there's science and there's research around this. We're not saying, to your point, this person is saying this he's saying it fixed everything. And maybe it moved enough of his needle that it felt like it did. But the person's not wrong also in saying, hey, this feels like this is not going to be sustainable. Like, and that's what I think you mean by a quick fix and these amazing effects lasting long. That's what you're saying is really did this fix everything?
Yeah, right. And it doesn't. Sometimes there is a honeymoon period with these things. And then that's why you see the people going back and back and back and back. It's like, well, maybe it does help for a time. Maybe it is a tool within the toolbox. But you have to have some foundational, sustainable practices that are in alignment with these bigger aha moments in healing, which Kambo can be.
Like what we
Right.
So I think,
True.
yeah, I'm not against it.
Maybe we'll do Kambo live on the podcast one day.
No.
Ooh.
No, thank you.
Well, a boy can dream.
This was good.
Yeah.
I feel like
Don't mix your combo with your A2 milk, though.
Yeah, don't. That's a bad idea.
don't worry about your acne. If you have implants, it's all there.
Yeah. Is the implants organic? That would make the difference.
Wait a minute.
I hate you both, but thank you.
If you want to learn more about our clinical work, the telehealth center, you can tell why we worked so long together. It's too long. Check it all out at drwillcole.com. We'll see you next time.